fun. It's more fun in the Philippines. It's more fun in the Philippines. Philippine Islands. It's more fun in the Philippines.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our weekly international plot chat on every Wednesday, 3 p.m. GMT plus 8 at Facebook or YouTube Live at IQI International Sales. I'm Mandy Chen from IQI Global, your host of today. On behalf of IQI Global, the Asia's biggest real estate and investment agency, also a member of Juwai.com, I would like to thank everyone for supporting our program. Our webinar usually features some of the best investment or project in the various hotspots around the group. If you like our program, which you think that is benefiting you, do invite and share it with your friends. Should you have any comments and questions, feel free to leave it at the comment box. We will revert to you shortly. Well, for the last two episodes, we talked about 8 reasons why you should consider investing in Philippines and the lifestyle for an expat living in the Philippines and why Philippines is the chosen country. I believe that you have actually heard our webinar. If you would to miss it, do watch a replay at the YouTube. I hope by now you have a little feelings or some feelings of this beautiful tropical country. Have you? You probably might fall in love later after hearing how easy the investment criteria for a foreigner to invest in Philippines. Without further delay, let me welcome Andrew, our country head managing director of IQI Philippines, to share with us what is the investment criteria in Philippines. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Hi, Mandy. Good afternoon to everyone, and good afternoon to you. Looking good, as always.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're very excited to actually share with you the next topic for this series of talks about investing in the Philippines, and it's all about the criteria or how can a foreigner own a property in the Philippines.
Yep. So the floor is on yours. So
All right. Okay, again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your time. Like what Mandy has said earlier, for sure you have seen our first episode tackling the 8 reasons why you should be investing in the Philippines, all its economic advantages, as well as on the lifestyle of a foreigner or an expat living in the Philippines. So, for sure, you have an idea already how wonderful and easy it is to navigate and have a quick, or I would say, a balanced life, like live, work, and play in the Philippines. And if
yep.
you're very interested in doing that, then I will be sharing with you on the house, and what are the criteria on investing in the Philippines. So I will be sharing with you some slides this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Gerald, can you please share the slides? All right. So just waiting for a little bit, but it will show up for sure. There you go. All right. So our topic for today is investment guidelines for foreign buyers. So of course, now that you have an interest in investing in the Philippines, your next question is that how can I invest and what are the limitations or what are the things that I have to consider? On your next slide, you will show the question of can an expat or foreigner buys a property in the Philippines? And of course, though we have some laws that are restricting the ownership of foreigners in the Philippines for real estate properties, specifically in land, then we have some restrictions or I would say exceptions for that. All right. So definitely a foreigner can buy a condominium property or any individual or single detached property or house and lot that is covered by a condominium certificate of title. There are a few housing projects that has the CCT, and they basically, if you own 40% or if you have 40% of the owners who are foreigners, then 60% Filipinos, then that's still possible for you. All right. Now, in the event that you would like to own a house and lot or a commercial lot or commercial building, so the next question is that what are the restrictions or what are the ways for us to be able to invest or own those kind of properties? So the next slide will show you that there are actually four options that you can actually use for you to own a property in the Philippines or lot in the Philippines. Number one is, of course, if you're married to a Filipino citizen, then definitely you can own a property in the Philippines, specifically house and lot or anything with land. All right. But of course, in the title, the name of the Filipino will be only reflected. But in the contract to sell or deed of absolute sale, definitely you can put your name on that as the owner as well. Okay, in the event that the other party or the Filipino partner pass away, then definitely you can still sell the property, but definitely you cannot have the title under your name. But the good part is that you can liquidate or you can actually dispense that property and have some earnings from that. Okay. The second one is creating a domestic corporation. So if you are an entity or if you own a company here in the Philippines and you have 40% ownership and 60% should be owned by a Filipino partner. All right. By having that, you can actually own a land as big as 1,000 square meters for residential or 1 hectare of land for I would say an open or industrial lot or land. Okay. On the next slide, on the third ways on how you can invest in the Philippines or own a land or a real estate property is by applying for a retiree visa. So later on, I'll be sharing with you the special residence retirement visa, which a lot of Koreans, Chinese are using right now for them to be able to study here in the Philippines. I mean, for their kids to study in the Philippines, own a property here, and somehow retire here. A lot of expats or foreigners are enjoying the tropical weather in the Philippines, so that's why they try to move here. Other than the education, another reason that they move here is the, I would say, competitive advantage of our healthcare. We have the best doctors and nurses here in the Philippines, and we have also state of the art facilities for medical purposes. All right. Then the next way for you to be able to own a property or land in the Philippines is if you are going to, I would say, invest in properties and use that property also as your deposit for your special retirement visa. All right. The next question is that are foreigners required to secure a visa to buy a property? So it's not actually required unless you are based here in the Philippines and you are working here in the past few years. If you're an expat here, then basically no need for visa, but the developer might ask for your alien certificate of registration. Okay. Now, on the next slide, you will see the basic programs that we have for the special residence retirement visa. As what I mentioned earlier, this is what most of the expats are using right now, or foreigners who would like to have their kids study in international schools, or if they have some businesses here in the Philippines also, so they avail this one. So the two most common program is the SRRV Classic, which is being extended to active and healthy retirees. So that means that your age must be around 35 to 49 years old. And for you to be able to own a property, you can actually purchase a property not less than 50,000 US dollars, and that can be used as your deposit. So the deposit has to be kept for you to be able to stay in the Philippines. Now, for a 35 to 49, the limitation is 50,000 pesos without pension. But for those who are at the range of 50 years old and above, there's a 10,000 US dollars worth of deposit and 20,000 US dollars worth of deposit without pension. So the pension can be a money coming from your home country or from your insurance as well. So there are actually a wide range of options, but this part we will discuss this further on a separate episode of Property Talk or Property Chat. All right. Then the next one is the SRV Human Touch, and this one is applicable for those who are actually ailing retirees or those who would like to request for some health assistance and they would like to live in a tropical country that is easier to navigate around and very convenient as well. So this one is for 50 years old and above. And of course, similar to the first one, you would be required to have at least 50,000 worth of property that can be used as your deposit. All right. And then, of course, you have to submit a proof of monthly pension of 1,500 US dollars monthly. And like what I said earlier, insurance is also accepted. And then if you're going to buy a property, that should be not less than 50,000 US dollars. It can be a condominium, it can be a house in the province. On the next episodes, we will be discussing with you what are the locations or what are the cities that a lot of foreign nationals are actually retiring. Definitely cities that are well connected, or I would say with a great component of the live, work, and play, and those areas outside Metro Manila that are very serene and very I would say nature inspired are the topmost consideration for those individuals or foreigners who would like to retire in the Philippines. All right, next slide. Now, the next question is that what are the other exception or the restriction on foreign land acquisition? One of that is the acquisition through hereditary succession, meaning if someone died and you are an heir to that, then definitely, and if you're a foreigner, then definitely you can own that piece of land or property in the Philippines. There are actually a lot of other restrictions, but I think it will be best if you can discuss that with your your brokers or possibly with your lawyer as you discuss what are the other restrictions and solutions to that restrictions when it comes to owning a land in the Philippines. All right, next. The next question that we normally get is that can a corporation own a land in the Philippines? Okay, so like what we said earlier, foreigners, expats, and corporations can own completely or 100% a condominium property or a townhouse that has the condominium certificate of title. Okay, but then for a domestic company with 40% foreign equity, they can own private land and residential house and commercial building and lot. Of course, there's also a subject. There's also a limitation on the how big of a land they can actually own and for what purpose as well. Next slide. Now, the second question that we always get is that can a foreigner lease land in the Philippines? And the answer to that is yes. So, for example, since there's a restriction on owning a land, but then if you aim to actually build a house for rental, or if you would like to build a commercial building for rental as well, for rental purposes, then definitely you can do that. So, what you have to do is that you can lease out a land which is owned by a Filipino for a 50-year contract or 25 years. If you're familiar with some resorts in Palawan, in Boracay, that is owned by foreign individuals or entity, that is actually what they do. They lease out the land from Filipinos and build their resorts or their buildings and then whatever business that they have to earn some money as well. Next. Can a foreigner own a house or building in the Philippines? And the answer to that is yes. You can actually not own the land or the lot, but you can actually own the building or the structure built on it. All right, and that is covered by the Investors Lease Act of the Philippines. And like what we said, you have a 50 years renewable contract to 25 years. Now, we're moving on to the next topic, which is what are the taxes or what are the implication as you transact or sell your property in the Philippines. All right, so of course we have the 6% capital gain tax, and that is based on the actual selling price. Now, documentary stamp tax will be around 1.5%. Transfer tax will be 0.6% to 0.7%, depending on your municipality or city. And then registration fee is an average of 0.6%. And then, of course, for the notarial fee, it will be 0.001% or 1,000 pesos per million, or 2,000 pesos per million, depending on the transaction. And then, of course, if you would like to have a smooth and I would say smooth sale of your transfer of the ownership, then you have to pay also a documentation fee of around $600. All right, and all of this amount is actually based on the actual selling price. Now, for the capital gain tax and broker's fee, that is normally covered by the seller, and then the documentary stamp tax, transfer tax, registration fee, notarial fee, and documentation fee will be for the account of the buyer, and this is applicable for the secondary market or ready for occupancy properties. Then next is what are the other costs or what are the taxes that is actually necessary to be paid as you purchase properties from the developers. So we have the 10% capital gain tax, 1.5% documentary stamp tax. That capital gain tax is now 6%. Transfer tax is 0.6% to 0.7%. Registration fee is 0.6%. And if the property is owned by a corporation, then definitely instead of capital gain tax, you have to pay the creditable withholding tax, which is equivalent to 6%, and also the value added tax, which is 12%. And again, all expressed as part of the sale price. Okay, so all of these taxes are already included in the selling price normally. Now, upon turnover, after have succeeded on paying the condominium, for example, in Bonifacio Global City or Makati, then there are also some other fees that you have to consider, and that is from 4.5 to 6% miscellaneous fees. And that includes the mortgage redemption insurance, the real estate tax, the initial payment for that, and then the utilities fee, like installation of electricity and water, and of course, the move-in fee. So that is the average percentage for the turnover and miscellaneous fees after you purchase a property from a developer. Next. So now, what are the other costs that you have to expect, as a foreigner investing in a property in the Philippines? Of course, we have the association dues, which is equivalent of around $2 per square meter per month. That is for the residential. And then for commercial, it's a little bit higher. It's $4 US per square meter per month. There should be an H on that one. All right. And then property tax, it's 2% of the assessed value, depending on the municipality. All right. So, and that should be paid every month. Now, if you're wondering, how can I do that, Drew? I'm based here in Malaysia. I'm based here in Canada. Then, of course, we can offer our services as property management, and we can help you out on paying your association dues, property tax, and also collecting rent. All right. And then, of course, another thing that you have to consider as you invest in the Philippines or properties in the Philippines is you have to get a comprehensive property insurance. And that is actually required by the developer or by the building upon turnover of the property. Next. So after knowing all the information that you have to know about owning a property, what are the laws and restrictions, and after knowing also the taxes that is part of the buying or purchasing of a property in the Philippines, then maybe your next question is that, Drew, what are the hot spots for investment in the Philippines? All right, so for most of you, I think you're familiar already with Makati City. And I think with our last episode and with what we have shown you in the last videos, you are now familiar with the gig or the Bonifacio Global City. This is the upcoming, I would say, townships that has a lot of vibrant communities and also resident mixed use of residential, commercial, malls, retail, etc. All right, and then next to that is Mandaluyong City. Later on, you will see that right next to Makati and Taguig is Mandaluyong City. So it's now becoming an alternative option for those who would like who are actually working or they have businesses in Makati and Taguig, but they find the prices in these areas too expensive already. So you have Mandaluyong City as an alternative or Pasig City. And then, of course, Pasay City became very popular as we have the Mall of Asia or the biggest mall in Asia. And also we have IKEA, which is the biggest IKEA in the world, which is situated in Pasay City. And right next to Pasay City, we also have the Entertainment City, where you can find Okada, City of Dreams, and a lot of casinos and resorts. And that area is pegged to be the entertainment city of Asia as well. All right, so it's a massive land of offices, casinos, resorts, and also hotels that are being developed right now. Okay, so on the next slide, I'm going to show you a map of Metro Manila. So if you're wondering, Manila is Manila too small? No, it's actually a big chunk of land that is composed of a lot of cities. Okay, so Manila, as you know, is the central, it's the center of Metro Manila, but we also have neighboring cities that are actually upcoming. So if you can see that I put an icon, a building icon on the cities that are actually the hotspots for investment. So we have Mandaluyong, Pasig, Taguig, and Makati. So Makati and Taguig are actually the major central business districts. But as what I have mentioned in our last discussion, there are a lot of townships and communities that are being developed outside those CBDs, like in Pasig, Pasay, Parañaque, and also in Mandaluyong. There are also some townships that are being developed now in Quezon City, up north, which is actually the biggest city in Metro Manila. So if you find the prices in Taguig and Makati and Pasig too expensive, then definitely there are other investment options for you in Quezon City, in Manila, in Marikina, and also in Parañaque. All right, and we are going to highlight some of those projects in the next episodes of this property chat. So now I will just recap what are the reasons why people or foreign investors or even Filipinos, a lot of overseas Filipino workers are investing in the Philippines. Of course, number one is the high rental yield. As what we have mentioned before, we are second when it comes to the high rental yield in Asia. Second in Indonesia. Indonesia is around 7.09%, and for us it's 6.13%. But of course, in 2016 up to 2019, we have recorded the highest rental yield of 7% to 9% in the Bay Area, where Pasay City is, Ortigas Center, where Pasig City, and of course, Makati and BGC. Just to add also on this one, right now we have seen the market bouncing back when it comes to demand for offices. There is actually around 15% growth in demand for office properties right now. There are more companies who are opening up their offices again and putting up new area headquarters in the area. All right, and when it comes to residential, of course, because the office segment is also moving, then the residential segment is also moving fast. Right now, we have a lot of expats coming in and looking for properties in Bonifacio Global City, Makati, and Ortigas Center. Next. Of course, right now we have 10% vacancy rate for residential and 6% vacancy rate for offices all over Metro Manila. Next. Now, of course, everyone who's investing in a property would always look for the appreciation or capital appreciation, right? This is the historical data that we have. In 2013, we have noted the 14.37 growth in property value. But in 2019, which is a very notable rate, it's 29.1%. Though there was a decline in 2020 and 2021, but in 2021, we have noted around 3.9% appreciation of property in secondary market. And in 2022, according to our research in July, we will be able to see around 18 to 19% growth in property value. Okay, so those are the two major reasons why you should be investing in the Philippines. And I think if you have any question regarding my presentation, we will now be happy to entertain your questions or clarifications.
Great. Thanks, Andrew, for the great sharing. I have some questions for you,
All
as
right, game.
usual. Okay, so it's interesting to know that foreigner can actually buy landed. Okay, but which area that you're talking about in the whole Metro Manila that can actually get landed? Because I remember the last visit I went to Manila, I probably see most of the developments are generally apartments or condominiums. What about landed or houses?
Right. One thing that we have noted in the last 2 years that's happening right now is that there are actually foreign entities who are buying, the side skirt of the CBDs. Like for
Mhm.
example, in Mandaluyong, or there are small areas on the outskirt of the area that has cheaper property value, and they actually buy that lot and put a dormitory or a co sharing for residential. So that is quite common because a lot of people are working in the CBDs, but their challenge is, traveling from their location, from the province or from Quezon City. So, of course, since the condominiums are very expensive also in the CBDs, we need an alternative option for them. So that's why there's a lot of, I would say, condotel type of services that are now being built in the area on the side skirt that are now catering to the workers who are actually, working and making a living in these CBDs. And another thing that we also noted is that a lot of foreign entities are also buying, for example, house and lots in the villages outside the CBDs like Parañaque, Muntinlupa, because Pasig, because the prices are still low. And now that the development is going outward, those CBDs and those areas will be affected. Now they try to do build and sell as well. No, they
Okay.
can actually partner with a Filipino owner, and then they put a structure and they flip it after. So that's another investment option that they can consider as well.
But usually this type of investment option is more for locals, right? Foreigner will
Yes,
hardly go there because in terms of the distance of traveling is another thing.
right,
Also is rental wise is also not as attractive as those apartments or condominiums in the CBD itself.
right. Yeah, most of them are actually the way we see it is that most of them are actually those foreigners who have been doing businesses already here in the Philippines. Yeah, majority are already based here and they know already the market. Because if you are someone that haven't been to the Philippines or you don't know the how it works here in the Philippines, then I would definitely not advise you to do that easily or right away, unless you have a reputable partner here that you have known for a long period of time already.
Okay, that's great. Another question is that a lot of investors I would say that they are more on the businessman or entrepreneur, whereby they already have the existing company. So usually they will ask this question: should I buy the properties in my personal name or can I buy under company name? What is your advice?
Yeah, for corporation, if you're buying condominium, I recommend that you buy under your personal name.
Mhm.
Especially for tax purposes, because of course, 12% VAT is also a big amount of uh, money that you have to pay if you actually sell your property. That is for the exit plan. If you buy a condominium and you would like to liquidate it after 5 years, I recommend that you put it under your personal name. But then, of course, if you're a holdings group anyways, and you have some benefits on taxes,
Mhm.
then you can actually put it in your corporation, depending on your needs. Because some corporation would like to invest as a corp company, and we have no way to put it on your personal name, right? But if
Mhm.
you're an individual owner and you own the company, but you would like to actually lessen the burden on paying the 12% VAT, then you can actually do it personally.
Okay, that's great. What about if, let's say, if amongst friends that we're interested to invest in in Philippines, or one of the properties or one of the projects in the CBD, can we join him because we do not have any like relationship? Is can it be possible?
Yes, that's possible. Yeah, we have some foreign clients actually. They have actually three names in the title, but they're not really connected. I mean, they're not family members. Even family members like cousins or brothers, you can actually put it also in the condominium title.
Okay. Is there any minimum investment amount that you're talking about for a foreigner to invest in Philippines?
That's around 160,000 US dollars right now, around 7 to 8 million pesos. That's actually the cheapest that we have in the five major central business districts that I have mentioned. But
Wow.
if you go further, like for example, you go to Laguna, Cavite, Bulacan, or the upper north in, I would say, Marikina, then there are still some properties where actually at 5 million, 4 million pesos.
Wow, that is amazing because I remember like 7 to 8 years ago, the price in the one of the top five cities in Manila is probably about 3 to 4 million peso,
Yes.
and right now you are talking about they have actually increased one four to double
Right.
up. Yeah.
Double up, yeah. So that means that if you purchased in 2015 when you were here or when you visited Manila, then most of the investments then have doubled already.
Wow, that is the opportunity and the potential of investing in Philippines. Okay,
Right.
another very important question is like a lot of investors will ask, can they actually get financings by buying a properties in Philippines?
Right. Well, if you are based somewhere else and if you don't have any business here in the country, then that has a limitation on getting a loan. But there are some developers who are actually providing in-house financing. But of
Mhm.
course, we know that the interest will be higher. It ranges from around 10% to 11% since last year, right? And that
Mhm.
was actually extended to a lot of foreigners who have invested before, and then since there's a pandemic and they have to pay off their balance, then some of them are actually availing it. But some also what they're doing is that they get a loan from their banks locally, wherever they are, and they pay off the loan. They pay off the balance here in the Philippines. But if you're an expat or foreigner who has been working here and you have the alien certificate of registration and you have bank account in the country, then you can also avail some bank loan from the international banks, or depending on the bank actually. Some local banks are so strict with foreign borrowing, but also some are very open to that, especially those who have been established already for a longer period of time. But definitely, international banks can be a consideration for you if you have been working here or if you have properties here already.
Well, don't worry because one of the competitive advantage of buying Philippine properties is that developer do offer a lot of option plans,
Right.
which is very attractive. Well, probably we won't discuss in this episode, so
Yes.
we will leave it to the next episode. So, should you be interested to know more about this, remember to join us. All right. All right. So another question is like I know that buying Philippine properties you can actually sell before TOP. Am I right to say that?
That's correct, Miss Mandy. Yeah. So you can actually there's an exit plan for projects that you have purchased. For example, you bought a property in Ayala project, and then after 1 year or 2 years, you wish to actually discontinue your payment and would like to sell it. And here in the Philippines, we're not so strict with that. You can actually sell it right away, like after a year or even less than a year, as for some developers, to another individual or another foreign entity that would like to assume the balance or continue your payment and purchasing of that particular property. I think that's one also of our advantage, I guess, compared to the other Asian countries.
Yep. Would that be easy to do such transfer or is subject to developers approval?
Normally, the developers allow it. So we just have to notify the developer, and the documents that we will need is, of course, the deed of assignment, that you're authorizing the developer to sell it to another entity, and you're assigning that particular property to another investor, another buyer. And after that, then you will assume the new buyer will assume the balance, and all the responsibility and documentation will be transferred to the new buyer. And of course, whatever the original owner has shelled out or has paid, then of course that will be part of the consideration for the final amount that the new buyer will consider.
Okay, and usually this process will not take very long, right?
Yeah, normally for that one, as long as it's still under the developer, of course, it will take around 1 month, maybe the maximum, for you to be able to have the CPS as well, or the contract to sell.
And there's a minimum cost involved, right, for such
Right,
transfer?
yeah. There is a documentation fee for that, of course, and then if it's not yet fully turned over, there's just an admin fee, especially if
Mhm.
you purchase it before the actual turnover. So it's a very minimal cost, and the good thing about that is that if you're considering investing in those kind of properties who are not yet fully turned over and still with the developer, you will not be paying the transfer tax anymore. You will not be paying the registration fee, and you only need to pay the documentary stamp tax and also the documentation fee, which is normally around 30,000 to 50,000 pesos. So
What
you'll
about the
be able to save few. Yeah.
yeah? What about the capital gain tax?
No
If
need to
let's
pay for that. Yeah.
even though I make some profit,
No, yes, yeah. Especially
oh,
if it's assumed balance, yeah. But if you are, for example, if you have already paid a certain amount of, for example, 20% is paid already to the developer, and then you're going to sell it before the turnover, okay, there will be a capital gain tax already.
okay.
So the earlier stage, you have lesser tax to pay, but then on the latter stage, then of course, the more taxes to pay.
Audience, don't worry. With regards to all these taxes, we have our IQI Philippine team. They are very professional. They can actually guide you through in the event that you really invest the properties in Philippines and you decided to sell before the turnover or even after the completion. So this part you do not have to worry. We have a very solid and strong team based in the Philippines that can actually assist you.
Yes.
Okay. Another question is that a lot of people were actually asking is like, generally, in Philippines, right, the construction period will take how long to complete? Because I understand that some will take probably at least 5 years, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. For the low rise to a middle rise building, normally it's around 2 years to 4 years, and then for the high rise, normally it's around 5 years. So there are some who actually finish at 6 years, especially during the delays in because of the lockdown. But that's the average. You can actually expect that from 4 years to 5 to 6 years maximum.
Okay. And probably the last question for you. A lot of people is interested to know that whether buying properties, especially you talk about condo or apartments in Philippines, do they provide car parks or what sort of furnishings that usually developer will be given?
Yeah, normally some developers are providing the air conditioning units, the range hood, the stove, the built-in stove, but there are also some who are actually providing only the kitchen appliances, and
Mm-hmm.
then the rest is for the new owner to actually furnish or provide. But then again, the cost for that is not really much. And what we do here is that we actually have a partner interior designer who actually help out also in outsourcing and finding those right furnishing for them if they're really worried on the after sale service like providing furnishing, putting some lighting, etc., etc., then definitely we can endorse you to the reputable interior designers who can help you out. As we know, it's very important that your property will be well presented even if it's for lease or for sale.
Mm-hmm. And usually, fully furnished units will be easier to rent out compared to the partly furnished, right?
Yes, yeah. Majority of the demands, I would say around 80 to 20%. 80% are looking for fully furnished. Only 20% are looking for unfurnished. And mostly those are for the bigger cuts of units,
Mm-hmm.
like around 150 to 300 square meters.
Okay. And is car park is a necessity when come to buying a condominium?
Well, if you're going to stay, definitely it is a must because, as you know, everyone here is using cars, driving cars. We are still yet to wait for the most convenient train system. It's going to be happening by 2025 for sure. So maybe by that time, you don't need to buy a car anymore because it's very convenient now to move around. Grab applications are also here providing services to a lot of Filipinos and expats. But of course, I highly recommend to have parking slot for investors because, as you know, if you're going to lease it out, of course, your client or your tenant will be looking for a car park.
And usually in Philippines, if you were to obtain a car park, you actually need to pay extra, right? It will not be in
That's
the
correct.
contract
Yeah.
price, right?
Right. Yeah. For now, it's around 1.8 million pesos to around 3 million pesos for the car
Mhm.
park alone.
Which is equivalent to USD.
One moment. Let me just do my conversion. Okay, so 1.8 million divided by 50. So that's around 36,000 US dollars to around 60,000 US dollars.
All right, that is great. All right, so I guess we by now we actually have a better understanding of how to invest in Philippines and what are the investment criteria. So I hope that you start to have more feelings when it comes to invest in Philippines and with IQI Philippines together with IQI Global, we are here to actually assist you should you have any questions with regards to invest in Philippines or rather that you keen to do so and you are looking for a hotspot or particular projects that you really want to invest, stay tuned with us because next week or this Saturdays, I would say, we're going to share with you another interesting topic. We will compare the investment hotspot in the Metro Manila. So I believe that a lot of people will be keen to actually stay tuned with us on this topic because if you are the one that who decided to invest in Philippines, definitely you need to know where to invest and which is the best area that you should look after. All right. So once again, thanks, Andrew, for your awesome sharing. For
Thank you
those
also,
that
Mandy.
yeah, and later on, Andrew will actually leave his contact number. Should you have further questions, you can actually connect with him. And if you miss our last few episodes, you can watch the replay at our Facebook or YouTube at IQI International Sales. Remember, mark your calendar, okay, and support us. Share our programs to all your friends if you think that that's benefiting you. All right. So take care, everyone. I'm Mandy signing off. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you.